Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got two replays in the Era 2 Eastern Alliance heavy tank, the T-72M1. Now this is obviously a Cold War Era 2 tank. It's the better version of the T-72 Ural, because this tank is actually the same as the T-72 Ural, it's just the upgrade of it. And that shows, because there's the T-72 Ural and then there's this M1. And the M1 is pretty much better in nearly every single way. Nearly. I did say nearly. This tank is really solid. It's a very, very good tank. And it really does beg the question of why is the T-72 Ural a thing if this is a thing? Or why is the M1 a thing if the Ural exists, right? This is like the top Era 2 heavy tank, whereas the Ural is like the mid or bottom tier era, bottom era tank, right? This tank literally has like 30 worse shell velocity and about 0.2 seconds worse aim time. And I think that's it. In terms of the armour, it's better. The turret armour is a little bit weird compared to the two because of just the way the angling is and the armour thickness on two different plates. But for the most part, the turret armour is exactly the same as the T-72. It's a weak spot. It's not something you're going to poke a ridge line and say, stay hull down and think, yes, nothing's going to pen me, because things will pen you in the turret. And if you're shooting at these things, you just shoot it in the turret cheeks right next to the gun, and you will pen it quite a lot of the time if you've got, like, 370 odd pen, maybe more than that. But the upper plate is where this thing is so much different, because the upper plate on the T-72M1 has 3 layers of armour, as opposed to the T-72's 2 layers, and it's so much thicker as well, because the T-72M1's armour is like 105 on the top armour plate of it. Or should I say the bottom, it's 60mm on the next plate and 16mm on the third layer. It's the 3 layers of armour, whereas the T-72 Ural only gets 80mm and then a second armour plate of 45mm. Which means that genuinely, the upper plate of the T-72 Ural is pretty pathetically bad. And it gets penned very, very easily. It's more... Well, I'm not really playing the T-72 Ural, to be honest, because I've got this tank and I think, what's the point? But when shooting at them, it always feels like the T-72 Ural is just a glass cannon of a heavy tank, as opposed to this thing, which can get penned decently easily, but if you angle and stuff like that, you can ricochet a solid amount of damage. As you see, we've already ricocheted 2.5 so far. This tank is just really, really solid. It's not like FV4211 standards, where it's absolutely ridiculously just stupid with its armour, but, it's workable, and it's pretty decent. I really kind of like the tank, to be honest. But it does beg the question of, yeah, why does the Ural exist? Because this tank's just better in pretty much every way. Is what it is. So, in terms of a crew for the T-72 Ural, not Ural, the M1, and the same for the Ural, I run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Track Mechanics, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, and Off-Road Driving. Off-Road Driving to help the mobility of this tank as much as possible, make it as good as possible, so it can hit that top speed, which it does quite nicely. All the gun handling perks, well, because, Cold War, making your gun as good as possible is one of the nicest things you can do, because you want to be making sure that you're hitting all of your shots, pretty much. It is the way it is. And yeah, you'll have a lot of fun with this tank. In terms of equipment, I run rammer, vert stabs, and vents, because I want to make everything in my tank as good as possible with the vents. I run vert stabs to make the gun as good as possible, and rammer to make the DPM as good as possible. Just, make everything as good as possible, as humanly possible in this T-72M1, to be honest. In terms of equipment, with equipment, you could, if you wanted to, just drop out the vents and run something like a traction system and get up to 66 kilometers an hour if you wanted to. You could run advanced armor if you really wanted to waste a slot. You could run like optics to make your view range better. You could run a camo net to make your camo better, but you are a heavy tank and it is a good brawler, so you're going to be wanting to get up in people's faces. To be honest, for me personally, I think the best thing for it is rammer, vert stabs, and optics. Because, the aim time in this setup that we've got now with the crew and the equipment 2.2 seconds aim time, or 2.19 I think it is, or something like that. Hang on, I will just double check that for you. Yeah, 2.16 aim time is what I've got on the T-72M1. If you really, really wanted to go overkill, you could drop vents and decide, you know what, I want my aim time to be godly, and you put GLD on and you'll get to 1.94 second aim time. I mean, you could do that if you wanted to, for sure, but I'd fully recommend just going with rammer, vert stabs, and vents. Just make it better. I'd say, or you just put traction system on and go 66 kilometers an hour and feel speedy. So on this game on Heilbronn, it's Heilbronn Assault, which is really dodgy spawns. Me and Rossi, might say, managed to get up the A-line, attack their spawn pretty effectively, and now the rest of the team has got down the JK and into town. But fortunately enough, we've managed to get up behind them, so we slap a big shot into the T-72. We're rapidly, right now, running out of heat rounds, AP rounds, which is not that good. I actually take less heat rounds these days, and I think you'll see that in the next replay, because heat is just so ineffective, or so troll at the tier, because, or should I say the era, because there's so much tanks with either ERA or just spaced armor everywhere, and that makes the heat rounds not that great. But now we are on heat only. We do manage to get a shot through the FV4211's cupola, which is nice. We've got a side shot on the T-72, which again, I didn't realise at the time I'd only got heat left, which we put straight through his drive wheel. If we had AP, that would have penned, but it didn't, and we ended up doing track damage only, or what, we blew his tracks off. But we did get another shot through the FV4211's cupola, which finishes him off. Now we've got the RDFLT down our side, so we pull back, get a shot into him while he's yelling round, and I'm kind of like, okay, I'm going to leave this light attack, because Rossi says he's got it, he gets a shot in, and I get to finish him off. Now we're on 115 damage, it's like, not 150 damage, 115 HP, I'm like, oh god, I'm dead. But the T-72 just ignores me. I think he got distracted with Rossi, he ignored me instead of going for the kill. We end up auto-aiming a shot into his back end, because he's got spaced armor on there, which means the heat. The big 200mm thick log on the back of the T-72 Ural actually saved him and absorbed the heat shell. Is what it is. So we didn't manage to get the kill, but Rossi did, and we finished the game with 6 kills, 8.6k damage, 2.1k assistance, ace tanker, 1764 base XP. A nice game for the T-72M1, which, like I say, is just the, you know, better version of the Ural. But yeah, I fully wouldn't recommend taking as much heat as I did in that first game, because yeah, like I say, it's not that great, to be honest. And yeah, we actually run 35 AP or APFS DS, I think it is, on this tank. Yeah, and heat and 5 heat, 4 HE. 4 HE because, well, if you get a tank that's 100 health, something like that, you might be able to splash it to death rather than having to pen it. That's always useful. Heat rounds because, well, you never know, sometimes you might have a tank that you just want to fire the heat rounds at, but to be honest, like I said, I never actually dip into them unless I get into the territory of what we had last game where I was running out of ammo. So we're on the second game, we're on Fredvang, and it's Fredvang Encounter, which means the cap is at B9, as you can see on the minimap. So what I want to do is get up to D7. I want to go to D7 because I can shoot the people as they cross the A line and go towards the cap. I can also shoot anyone that gets spotted exactly where their team is getting spotted at the minute, who push down the 3-4 line, which happens quite a lot. It's personally the way I'd probably go, to be perfectly honest, if I was their spawn. So we can actually catch these guys out as they push. So as you see, we get a nice shot into the Leopard for 497. And we're just going to start trying to put some shots in. We're going to use this rock to our left as cover, as good as possible. Because, yeah, we don't want to take any big hits. And like the Leopard 1A1, for example, that's got high enough pen that it will absolutely butcher us. And, yeah, we don't want to take those shots. So, unfortunately, we bounced there on that guy as he went past. And we're just scanning the ridgelines over there. We've been seeing shots flying, so we're just having a look to see if we can see the targets that are shooting at us. There we go. We saw another round fly in. And it's like, what is that that's pumping shots at us? And I'm looking a bit too high, and there you go. You see the shell tracer. It's an RDFLT. we get the shot into him. And we're just looking for a shot at the T-72M1. He's kind of in a weird place, but we can just see his outline, so he hasn't moved. And we get another shot into that guy. Now there's people moving in behind us. There's this T-72 over here. So what we're going to do is try and use the rock in front of us to leverage our gun elevation, gun depression, so that we can actually get shots into him. So we're just sort of hooking up on top of this rock, and we're getting some shots into the King of Pandas. Well, the pandas are going to have to find a new king. And we're like, okay, so that guy's gone. We're going to turn around and start helping our friends directly in front of us again. We tried to get a shot into the T-72 Ural, but unfortunately it just didn't quite go in. Luckily, we don't get penned there. We only get tracked. Then we get shot again, and it's like, it's that pesky little RDFLT again, isn't it? We try and get a shot into him because we could just see him through the smoke, but we didn't hit him that time. We try and hit him again, but no, we're not hitting that shot. Then a rocket narrowly misses us, which is decent. You never want to get hit by one of those. But with the T-72M1, it's one of those things. Rockets either pen you for full or don't do anything at all, or like 36 damage or something like that. Difference between this and the Ural. The Ural seems to get penned really easily by the ATGMs. This thing, when I've played it, unless they catch you flush in the side, it seems to just not get penned for full in the upper plate, which is nice. Not as good as the AV, the T-72 AV, for example, because that thing just, it goes, ha ha, I see your ATGM, and I up you by ERA, because lol. So we're trying to get some shots into this T-62M1, sorry, and help out the guys over there. We managed to finish that guy off, and I think we're just watching for shells. We saw shells flying from over in the distance, and we're just looking for it, going, where are they? I can see shells flying, but then this Chieftain Mark 5 drives out in the open. It's like, well, don't mind if I do, Mr. Chieftain. I'm just going to farm some shots into you. But there's the Leopard 1A1 that we saw shell tracers from up there firing earlier on, and that's what it was. It was a 1A1 from just around the corner. We get a nice shot into him, boost our reload with food and our accuracy, and we're just looking for the shot on this guy. Oh, it just misses, though. It doesn't. This gun is really accurate, but unfortunately it just misses that shot on that guy. He gets unspotted, but true vision, so it doesn't matter. We get another shot into him. He's just high. He's just using this rock as best as he can. Unfortunately, we just missed the shot again into his side. But he pulls out on this rock, and I'm thinking, I want to try and track him, but he gets absolutely wrecked, so we get another shot into him to finish him off. Now it's time to help this 1A5 out, because they've pushed around in front of us over here, and we need to help the guy on the flank. I was helping the guys around there, and I hadn't quite noticed that this was going on in front of us, so it's like, oh god, sorry Mr. 1A5, I'm here to help. We get a nice shot into the T-72, he gets shut down by our 1A5 friend, and we're just going to focus shots into the 1A1 right now, because that guy's going to pen us fairly easily, but he's really easy to pen. The 2AV is a bit more of a nuisance to pen because of all the spaced armor on its frontal armor, so we need to be a bit more careful when penning this guy. But with his 370 pen, he's not going to guarantee penners every time. It's going to bounce a lot more times than the 1A1 will. So I ignored him enough times, and now it's just like, well, friend, you're a little bit alone. So it's time to push you. We wait round the corner until we're nearly reloaded, go after this guy. It's like, well, there we go. Bang, straight into his side, and we're just going to try and keep his side to us, but unfortunately we make a little bit of a mistake. But actually, we just keep his side on again, because we're guaranteed going to go through this guy's side, whereas obviously his frontal armor, like I say, with the spaced armor, is going to be a little bit more awkward. But we get a nice shot into his drive wheel to track him in place, and we don't get to shut him down because the 2AV managed to do it. There's only one light tank left. It's somewhere in this direction. It's like, I swear it was over here somewhere, but it is a light tank. It's got over there pretty quickly. It's a WZ-1323. Bad aim there, really. We would have missed that anyway, but it is what it is. We missed that guy. Don't get the shot in, but we do finish with a great amount of damage for the T-72M1. We finish with the victory. 2 kills, 11.5k damage, 7.3k blocked. Ace tanker, 1636 base XP. A really nice game for the T-72M1. It shows this, how decent the armor is on this tank, how decent the gun is, and it's just an absolutely solid tank. It really is just the upgrade to the Ural. It's just so much better than it. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success.